I just want to ask a first question, and then I'll get to that question. Jim, could you just describe the methodology for collecting the data very briefly? I think a lot of people may have been wondering how you get the emotion and all that by time slice.
That's sure. It's great. That's the difference. Am I on here? It's the difference between an academic conference and a business world. No one asked me that question in the business world, but we're very proud of it. Actually, this sample was recruited from the MRI sample, which is an area probability sample, highly representative of the United States. We had a very high response rate within that sample, so we had although only just 2,000 people, we had a really good picture of the U.S. All of these people were either given an iPhone, which was disabled, it was just a research device, or if they had an iPhone or an Android, they could download the app themselves. They carried our phone or their phone with the USA Touchpoints app for 10 days, and over the course of those 10 days, they gave us data about every half hour of their day, literally from when they woke up to when they went to bed. And they could backfill, so on average, they'd respond every 90 minutes. And for every half hour of their day, they told us where they are, who they were with, what they were doing, their mood, their emotion, and all the media they use. And it was a series of closed-ended questions. So if you think about a computer-assisted interview, it's kind of like that kind of flow through all the questions.
Okay, great, thanks. Yeah.
So my question for Robin.
Well, hold on a second. We have a mic. Is there a mic coming around?
So the sorts of apps that you showed us would probably suggest that the retailers might suffer from the lack of impulse purchases. So is there any sort of sense of the risk associated with the kinds of things, that pre-planning, for instance, that you were talking about?
I think you could just, so the question is the risk on impulse if you're using the app. So I think this could also, I think it just gives you a new screen to drive impulse. So if you're walking through the store, that doesn't mean you don't see the pallets or you don't see the end cap displays. But I think in addition to that, you have another screen where you could suggest, hey, I see you put this in your basket. Would you want to add this as well? I've seen that actually on some of the list-making tools in particular. Once you add, for instance, you add cereal, so it says 50 cents if you get milk as well. So it could actually drive impulse in other ways.
Okay. Yes.
Question for Isaac. During your study or subsequently, did you find so a lot of mobile phones allow automatic updates?
Yes.
Right. So you do not see the app. You do not get a request to update the app, and you kind of forget the app very easily now with automatic updates. Have you seen any impact of that on access?
On whether
could you get the microphone over there? I'm not sure everybody could hear the question. Okay. At least I couldn't.
Yeah, thanks. So my question was, during your study or subsequently, did you see any impact on app access arising from automatic updates that most iOS or Android operating systems have enabled now?
So
where the user is not aware of the app as it gets updated. So previously, you would get a notification to update an app, and then you would become aware of the app that you had downloaded a few days ago and would access it again. But now it updates pretty transparently behind the scenes, and access could be affected by that.
To be honest, I'm not exactly sure if they were completely automatically updated, or if there's something you had to tap through and use. I believe there's some slight differences between the iPhone and Android for this, but it's a good question. I can't answer that directly, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, a question for Robin. Thank you. It was fascinating examples, fascinating talk. So I was, when you were talking about the examples, I was thinking about the possibilities of analytics from the data that comes out of all of that. So I was curious if you can talk about some examples of leading edge companies or brands who are actually, retail is pretty much at the front of all of this, but are you aware of brands that are actually using the data that's coming out from those very cutting edge mobile apps and customizing or driving that the strategies based on that data?
Sure. I think it's a twofold question if you're talking about a third-party app versus the retailer's own app. A good handful of retailers have set up their own digital labs. Everyone from the Home Depot to Walmart to American Eagle started doing these type of things. So that's where it becomes a question of partnership between some of the leading brands and the retailers. There are examples of that, but those aren't necessarily, how can I say that? Those are relationships between those two companies. They're not necessarily public or they're publishing everything they're doing. But those examples certainly exist. So I think, yeah, some of the big brands that you see doing a good job in social media and doing a good job in mobile would also be doing a good job in partnering, oftentimes.
When we're talking about mobile, we inevitably talk about apps. Apps take storage space on your phone, and is it necessary that as you go forward, it'll have to be an app to drive interaction with you? And unless I have a 32 or a 64 GB phone, I won't be able to deal with a lot of these things, especially if I have to keep my songs and my photos, and I have to carry those photos to put the door to see if the door fits, so on and so forth. So is it necessary that app is going to be the way this interaction gets driven?
I think
Maybe everybody could
Yeah,
react to that
so
too.
Sure.
But go ahead, why don't you start, Rob?
So
Yeah,
I guess so from the shopper usage perspective, you usually see people say they're more likely to go to the retailer's website versus download the app. So it is the more popular, the more casual interaction with the retailer. So obviously they do care about their presence there. But from the retailer's point of view, they really want you to download that app because that's creating that constant connection. They know you're on your screen and they can let you see what they're up to. So from their point of view, that's a more valuable connection to foster and encourage.
Yeah, and I think from our research, we're seeing very comparable levels right now of mobile web and mobile apps. But most recently, I think we've started to see, and it's hard, it's a slight difference, but we're starting to see apps surpassing mobile web. And I just know from work with clients that their focus is really much more on apps. There's more functionality for both the consumer and the brand or retailer.
Several follow-up questions, but I'm sure there are other questions.
Go ahead.
Yeah. If you look at rating these apps get on the App Store,
A lot of these are sub 3, right?
A lot of them are what?
A lot of them are rated 3 or less on a
Oh.
scale of 1 to 5, right? So there's a lot of dissatisfaction with even some of the brands that we saw today. Probably it indicates that it's still an evolving field. Probably it indicates you set up expectations too high and can't deliver. How do retailers deal with that part of it? And picking up on Aninda's question about the analytics for it, how do retailers address increasing privacy concerns that will come about? Walgreens app is great, but I know they're going to know where I've been if I keep that app on and keep track of where I have walked. Right? They're going to get that data, and what are they going to do with it, and so on. So, how do retailers, is that on the horizon? How do they think about it? And I don't know if there is the ROI to say, I invest in building, managing, maintaining an app in addition to my mobile web, and I don't know the technology well enough to know if it is a substantially incremental investment. How do retailers kind of tackle with that challenge?
So yeah, one of the most common things we've seen is they have to focus on providing a unique utility. The drugstore has done a great job with it, like CVS and Walgreens. The fact that you can just scan your scripts and then they're ready for you at the store. So providing something added as opposed to just a neat experience or opposed to just promotions. That seems to be key to get shoppers to want to be interested in it and to find that it's useful. In terms of the privacy concerns, I think that's always an ongoing question of where's the line between what shoppers opt into, and a lot of the retailers are very, or I guess all of them are very concerned about making sure that it is explicit that you chose to get this. But when you look at the survey data, though, you find that a lot of the younger shoppers, like the Gen X, the Gen Y, as long as they feel like they're getting utility for the information and they know how it's being used, they're okay with it. They don't care if you track it. It tends to be the baby boomer generation or older that find that very concerning.
Can I go back to the business analytics side of the conference? One of the things that none of you talked about I guess maybe because retailers just haven't caught up to this yet, is that one of the big challenges in digital is digital activity that occurs on multiple screens that cannot be linked together. And it would seem to me that a branded app, if there was incentive and somebody, for example, with geofencing, they come to a Target, their app wakes up, they enter in their frequent shopper number, that then links whatever's going to happen in the store to all the behavior that's known through their interaction with Target.com, which is also linkable, therefore, to digital information, matchable to social media information via email addresses and that type of thing. Has any retailer caught up to the business analytic possibilities of this yet, or is that still kind of ahead of where the curve is? Or did I not make sense?
Yeah.
That's
Well, let me take one slice at that from one perspective, Joel, and actually to address a piece of the previous question as well, because in another part of our practice earlier this year, we did a survey of current practices in market mix modeling, and we looked into all the media, and the two that were the most befuddling to the kind of commercial market mix modeling community were social and as a special case of mobile, primarily mobile, and mobile itself. The metrics aren't there. The complexity is just tremendous. We're actually about to embark on a study of the ROI of word of mouth, so social as well as offline word of mouth, and just mapping out the potential interactions, all the causes and effects. It's really, really daunting. In fact, Isaac, I was very interested to see your model because you did a really good job of trying to map out all the pathways. And it's challenging. Analytically, it's very, very challenging. And from what we've seen just from 30,000 feet talking to all the leading marketing mix modelers, nobody's really doing it. I don't know whether it's happening internally with retailers in their digital labs.
Yeah, one of the challenges is when people shop online, they tend not to sign in until they're ready to check out. So tracking all that behavior or how it connects can be quite difficult. So that seems to be one of the first steps. If you look at something like Amazon, if you're logged in when you're on your Fire versus your iPhone app versus the computer, that seems to be the first thing you try to get them to do.
Just to add to that a little bit, the ability to match those things, while in theory you say, oh, we should be able to do that, in practice is incredibly difficult and incredibly hard, especially in real time, which I think is what you're going at. For this particular study, we were only able to map maybe 5% of the people that actually use the app to their actual current customer base. Because for a lot of apps, there's a lot of users who do not register with that company. So there's a lot of other information that's floating around there that can't be matched up very easily. Hopefully that'll close a bit, but it's very challenging.
Why would that be? Because when you download an app, there's OAuth permissioning that occurs. So are people just not asking for the right permission to access? I mean, you should be able to, access various kinds of, Facebook profiles, timelines, that kind of thing.
So those types of things definitely inhibit adoption of the apps. If you ask for a lot of specific information, what you can see is a unique identifier to that phone in particular. So you'll have like a very long string of like 30 or 40 numbers, which will tell you exactly what the device is, but it won't tell you the user ID attached with that device. And even if you have that user ID, it might be different from the ones that are in the database stored with the retailer to begin with. So you might not have a perfect match if somebody uses their Gmail account for one and their Yahoo account for another. Then you have to do a little bit more of an intelligent matching system, which is inexact, as well as that also crosses into perhaps a privacy issue where the consumers want to be matched when they've only given their one email address to one channel and a different email address to another. Perhaps there's a reason for that. And if the retailers are able to do that, the individuals may not like that quite as much. But I think we're definitely going more towards the ability to match that overall.
Sir, one more?
Yeah, quick question. Have you guys looked at the relationship between some of these self-service apps and in-store labor? Has there been any attempt to kind of cater to the social nature of the millennials despite them being alone a lot? I'm just wondering if there's a relationship there with labor in store.
You're asking about the application of a mobile shopping, the relationship between a mobile shopping app and cost savings by the retailer on labor?
No, actually using labor in combination with the apps. Is there any retailer that have done that have kind of leveraged the social experience with associates, but at the same time some kind of app experience?
I think this is the question you're getting at. One example might be the Home Depot, where they have floor associates that are also in charge of managing some of their social interactions with customers. So not only are they talking with customers on the floor, but they'll be responding to their how-to centers in their communities and the like. So it makes a more engaging environment for the employees and lets them connect. But I think that's what you're asking.
We'll take, we got 3 questions. We only have time for one more. You can ask during the break. I'm sorry. Yeah.
A quick question. Beyond the self-checkout, there was a lot of buzz about having dedicated checkout devices given to the consumers, or the consumers using their iPhones and scanning while they're putting the stuff in the cart, and then just checking out, without going to a counter at all. Has that caught on? How practical is that?
So you're asking about mobile wallet?
No, mobile checkout. So self-checkout on your mobile devices or dedicated custom store provided devices.
So would that be an example of like what you see in an Apple store where you talk to an associate, they check you out, right?
No, I'm talking about in a grocery store primarily, using your own
phone. You showed an
phone.
example of self-checkout.
Oh, yeah. So the issue with the self-checkout example I showed, you have to connect through the self-service kiosks, I guess. And the reason why they did that, it was pretty explicit, is they found that there's no one technology people are using for mobile wallet, or people aren't necessarily comfortable putting their credit cards in their phone and keeping it that way. So to try to make it a little bit easier for the shopper and not have to worry about all the different mobile wallet platforms out there, they connected it to the self-checkout. So I think eventually you'll see it get to the level where you just use your phone and go, but I don't think shoppers are quite ready to adopt that yet.
Yeah, I was involved in one program like that, sort of Stop and Shop, and what we saw over a number of years, it was a long pilot, never-ending pilot, is that it literally increased basket size for them, which is that's the ideal goal for the retailers, is increase basket size and reduce labor costs, and resulted in higher customer satisfaction. So it was, all the indicators were really, really very positive, but they were very slow to adopt it because they're very, very high capital costs, because this was, as you're saying, it was a standalone device. Lately I've read, I think, because I'm not involved in it anymore, I think they're starting to try to move to a mobile phone application which would take all or most of the capital out of the system and make it much more affordable.
Yeah, they did move that way.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to thank the panel and speakers.